So welcome everybody, and I've with Gail Hugman today. Very excited to have her as a guest, and we haven't met except online in a networking group. So I've got to know Gail a little bit, and her skill is working with children and parents. Lessonsalive.com is her website, and motivating children from within. So welcome, Gail.
Thank you. Hello, Alexander.
And the question to start with is, I know you were a teacher for, I think, 30 years or so. And then I'm just curious, what made you want to change and go into creating your own business to help parents and children in a different way, let's say?
I was a senior teacher. I didn't want to be a head teacher. It seemed the more management I went into, the more paper I saw and the fewer children I saw. And so I wanted, and also you can go a bit stale if you don't keep refreshing with new challenges. And so I asked a young teacher what it was that they found most challenging in teaching. And his reply was almost immediate. He said, motivation. I can make the children do what they have to do, but I can't get them to want to do it. And those words rang in my ears, because I used to sometimes stand in my classroom and think, why do I feel more worried about your future than you, as the children were messing about or not engaging or not really getting the point. And we're so digitalized now that children will sometimes not pay attention because they can look at it later. And I used to find myself saying, I'm not a video, I'm not something you can play again. I'm going to say this once, it might be very important. And so I reflected on that, and I decided that, you know, this was an issue that has been current right through all of my teaching, motivation. How do you get children to want to do what they need to do? And I know it's one that parents face regularly. So that's what I've specialized in for the last 17 years.
Great. I love that sort of light bulb moment when the word motivation. And I imagine nowadays, even though you are working with children a lot, must be quite challenging to motivate children and get them off their electronics. Do you find that one of the more difficult things to help parents with? And
sometimes. However, sometimes parents don't know how to, they don't have an argument for their child, and their child will say, well, I'll miss out on my social, you know, it's my social circle. How will I deal with my friends, especially in lockdown? However, I have successfully several times explained to the child themselves how their brain operates when they're in front of a screen. And there's a very good book by a psychologist in America, which I mention in my own book, how to I don't think it's how to, I think it's just reset your child's brain. She deals with children who are addicted, even young children up to 12, or about 12, 11, 12, can get addicted to the entertainment online. And so her name is Victoria Dunkley. She wrote an in-depth study of how technology affects the developing brain. And you can find her on Twitter as well. She's quite marvelous in the argument she puts forward. And so in very simple terms, I explain to the children how their brains work. And I do this with children as young as 5, 6. As I say, in very simple terms. And I've put the lessons that I developed for it into my book, which I'll talk about later. But once the children understand the process of learning and they understand the place of the technology in their learning. One child had 3 teaching sessions with me, and a 14-year-old. And at the end of it, her mother sent me a text saying, I can't believe it. She put her phone outside the room when she's studying now. And her exam scores soared because she was able to focus and not go on TikTok and not go on Snapchat and in the middle of her studies. So unless the children understand what it is that's causing the distraction and how that is affecting their learning, then why should they stop? And so parents will get this, why should I? And I've thought long and hard about a lot of the why should I's. and the answers that I've come to, I've used everything in my book is real life experience with a child, with an issue, and this is how we tackled it. And of course, the parents need to be on board as well. So I'm educating parents about how their child is thinking, or giving them the insights that, you know, they may have one 9-year-old. I've had, I don't know how many 100 9-year-olds. So I can understand how they think, how they work, and what's going to get them going now. I mean, it's marvelous. I wish I had the body to go with the, with the enthusiasm. Wisdom always comes once we've gone through a bit of life. So
yeah, exactly. And tell us a little bit about your book or books. Have you got more than one?
I have got more than one. The first one is called A Short and Simple Book for the Wise, WHY. And it began as a letter to a head teacher when I resigned from teaching and said I was leaving to do my own thing. And he wanted to understand what it was I did that the children transformed when I was teaching them. And I said, I think it must be to do with the way I think about children. And so I started to write this as a letter. And then somebody said to me, a friend of mine who saw it, said, you should publish this. This would be good for parents. So it's very, very short, a short and simple book for the wise, WHY. And that was in 2001. And then I started working privately, and I just felt there were themes. And I came to the conclusion that half our education is missing, because you are created for a purpose. You know, everything in this on this planet is just awesome. Everything, every form of life. And the human being is the most intelligent, creative, sensitive form of life there is. But we all have inherited a culture. And that culture, we know, we can see before our eyes, is breaking down. And it is not healthy for humans to thrive in. Some do, some can thrive, but shouldn't we all thrive? And so I looked for themes. What is it that children need to know to be able to protect themselves from this culture and yet still live in the world? Because, you know, you get people who go off into the deepest, darkest forest and they live off their wits. And they try and avoid it because they have this calling in themselves, this human. So I found that they need to understand how to use the world, how to use that culture. So I separate it into what is now the first lesson in my book is called The Two Lives. And I say to children, when you're born, you think you have a life, you have a job to do, which is to live a life, but you get two lives in one. And the first one is your natural life. And this is the same for every single human being on the planet. We all start as a baby who knows very little at all. And we all develop as a child, and then we grow to be an adult. And I go through the stages, and it's all written into my book. And then I say you'll
just give us the
100 things to learn before you're 10.
Great title. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, continue. Yeah.
And then the second life that you have, that we all have, which is unique and different for every single person. So the first one is the same for all. The second one is your world life. And that depends on what time in history you're born, what place on the planet you're born, who your parents are, and so on. And the range of experience that you are exposed to. And I explain to the children, you can see that some of what's in the world is great and fantastic and good for you, and some of what's in the world isn't. And you get parents when you start your journey, so they can guide you because they've been here a while. And when I explain it to the children this way, they can say, my job is to develop my natural life, is to develop myself. And I use school to help me do that. I use things in the world to help me do that. So we talk about how do you become the best you can be in expressing yourself and your ideas, your creativity. So we need English, we need drama, we need art, and we go through all the subjects to work out how can I use this to develop me. And we talk about developing self-discipline, or we talk about developing creativity, or we'll talk, you know, whatever it is at school. And I encourage parents to look at a child's work and say, what is it my child can develop from doing this activity? Because every single thing we do has an effect in us. And we can monitor, if we're aware of that, we can decide whether or not we want that process in ourselves. But of course, children, you know, when I was young, this wasn't known. It's only because of the marvelous research by neuroscientists and modern discoveries that we're able to tune into these kind of things and explain them to the children in a way that they can use it. So
it's such a pity that in schools, I mean, my daughter's now 23. When she was at school, she could actually get away with doing nothing artistic, doing no sport. You know, when she was in sixth form, she could actually, you know, the only important things were maths and English, seemed to be, for the school. And children are not taught the importance of expression and creativity. And even the Dalai Lama, you know, talks about how we need to teach morals and ethics in school. We need to have a fully formed mini adult. And I think that's what you're doing outside school. You're kind of bringing in these elements which sadly are missing in the system.
Yeah. Well, it's personal development for children, really. And it's giving them, I mean, I don't know if you've seen Mock Cop. I think it is fantastic. It's youngsters around the world who have got together. I mean, they call them climate activists. They are not aggressive. I don't like the word activist applied to them because it makes them sound like rebels. These are really articulate young people who are very concerned about the future of the planet and global warming. And they've had a big conference where they're putting together their manifestos about education, about global warming, about climate change, and they are putting it to governments. And you know, there's one young lady I saw on Instagram actually making a little speech about, you know, I am personally affected. My island is affected by global warming, and I can't see the government's doing very much about it. And so I think if we can equip children with the means to express themselves, with humanity, putting humanity at the front and compassion at the front of their learning. Yes, they need maths. Yes, and I want them to be the best they can be. I want them to fly into the top school, because the best education that they can have in the culture and in their personal development will produce great people, I believe. And I'm actually seeing the results now. I'm so old. Great people that I met when they were 5, and they're now at university, or they're now involved in great projects. And I think, yes, you know, you made it through. You made it through those difficult years, because so many children will look at you as if to say, oh, I've got to wait until I grow up before I can do anything.
Yeah.
But you know, every child can do something today, now. You can do something, and I explained it to them.
That's amazing. And what I love, you told me last time we spoke that you've been with, some children have been with you, or families, for 4 years, some 10 years. I think that's amazing. I don't think I've ever heard anybody who's been working with people for that long. So obviously that's a testament to to their personal growth and creating great adults. So I think you're doing an amazing job, and it's so inspiring. And I'll put the website below, lessonsalive.com. Facebook page is also Lessons Alive on Facebook, and your website has a lot of great and valuable information. And I love your 4 main things that stood out for me: motivate, liberate, educate, celebrate. I mean, beautiful words. So you've obviously been very inspired yourself. And how do you keep yourself kind of inspired, apart from reading and
I can just look at a leaf. I just think that any living thing is just so awesome. You know, I can just look at a leaf and know that, I mean, one thing that totally blows my mind is that every single snowflake is unique. And when you think how many snowflakes there are in created, and I think, what can create? You know, I'm sure some scientist is going to say something now, but what? And every single human being. I mean, I once dealt with twins, and they were at loggerheads. And when I explained individually to each one why they are not joined at their hip, you know, I said, the minute you were born, your life was completely unique to your brothers, because no, you know, you had that view, or you had that experience. Your brother didn't have that. We all experience in different ways. You know, we might, it's that lovely story of the three blind men who see an elephant, and one says, well, it's like a snake, and one says, no, it's like a wall, and one says, no, it's sort of flappy, and of course one's feeling the tail, one's feeling the side, and one's feeling the ear. And it's that magnificence of uniqueness that no day is the same as any other day. I mean, I just wish I could be here forever. I just think it's fabulous, you know.
Well, hopefully you will be, and certainly your work will be. But what I was going to say is, I think one of the keys that I can see to your success is just that you're, you know, you're a bit, I don't want to say childish, but childlike, and children are curious. And when we're curious, and I love the example about nature and the leaf, and often I look at things and I just think, of course there's a creator, there's a magic, there's a mystery. This is amazing, you know, especially during lockdown. I've been in my little garden, and I just think, wow, you know, I've had this for 8 years. I've never really noticed, you know, this plant and this flower and this magnolia every day is transforming and changing. And so being curious and kind of open, and I think that's the beauty and magic of children, and you're helping them to grow in a very healthy way. So just to conclude, maybe anything, we're in holiday period now, a lot of kids at home, any maybe advice or tips? I know it's not that easy to keep, how can we keep the kids inspired, healthy? You know,
I have written an activity book, which people are welcome to download free if they come to my charity reading tomorrow, which is just £5. And I can send you the link, but they can have that to keep them occupied. But I think I would say there are two things, especially with COVID and everybody being so worried about the future. I would take a long view of the children and what they're learning. So you think, I want my child to be able to read when they're an adult. If they're halfway there already, stop worrying. You know, take a long view. What kind of an adult are you helping them to be? And over Christmas, rest. Where we've had wave after wave of challenges this year, and that includes the children. And rest and talk to each other, really talk to each other. Because I've had parents come to me and say they've got this issue or that issue with the child. One at the moment who's trying to work out, should I change schools for my child? And she's talking to me. I said, have you talked to her? Talk to her. See how she feels. She's young, you know, she's under 10. But I think we need to acknowledge that they are intelligent. They do know. And they may not have the vocabulary or the sophistication of an adult yet. And you can't put that onto them. But I've had some lovely conversations with youngsters. I mean, one boy in first lockdown, he said to me, I actually don't know how you catch the virus. And now, you know, everyone's wearing masks and their heads going, what? How do you get it then? You know, so I think keep it simple, talk to them, and keep a long view.
Great tip.
My book.
Great tips.
Come to my reading.
Yes. So the read is tomorrow night. Yeah.
Yes, at 4 o'clock. It was the night before Christmas, because it is the night before Christmas. Yes. So I thought I would just read that to any children who like to come along. and adults if they want.
Wonderful. So I'm going to put this on YouTube today, which is the 2 nights before Christmas, and then people have time to sign up, and you share it, please, and on Facebook. And I think you're doing incredible work, very inspiring. I wish I was a child again, then I could come to you. But I'm inspired even as an adult. And sometimes I find myself quite, I hope, quite childlike. You know, I try and be curious all the time. You know, as you know, I work with Qigong and energy. And I think when we open to this, the possibilities and the incredible, you know, energy that's out there, and that's what children, everything's possible for them. And unfortunately, as we grow up, we limit ourselves. I think what you said earlier was interesting. I think, you know, I think we're the only species, humans, that actually keep ourselves restricted. You know, a tree will grow as tall as it can, an animal, a child even will. However, the school, the parent, you know, they're kind of kept slightly small. So thank you. Happy Christmas to you. I need to go to get this onto YouTube, then people can download and watch your great reading tomorrow. So thank you, Gail.
Thank you very much, Alessandro.
Take care, and I'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.